Break it up. Nigeria's referendum on breakup. About me, part 2. This is the second part. Broadcast number 9. My name is Ofiong Akwa. I am going to continue my talk with you on my political background, journey, and evolution, which I started from broadcast number 7. The series was interrupted by the ignominious vote taken by the barely legal Nigerian Senate, a Senate that was concocted to give a finger to civil society and prominent Nigerians who have been calling for restructuring and redo of Nigeria's tottering governance system and unfair economic structure, because people have lost confidence in the present structure we have in Nigeria because it only favors one or two ethnic groups over the others, which we refer to that day as the Wednesday, July 17 Democracy Massacre. That day, 48 senators voted along ethnic lines to keep everybody oppressed. I'll keep you informed of new developments in my future broadcast on this. Today, however, I will continue with my political odyssey based on even more requests from my listeners. Let me initially point out that I can be reached at Ofiong Akwa@gmail.com. My Twitter handle is Ofiong Akwa at Bassi, BASSIY. My 9 videos can be viewed at my new Facebook group named Nigeria's Referendum on Breakup. Nigeria's Referendum on Breakup. Now, I was at University of Calabar as a Students' Union leader. I was a pioneer president of the Students' Union there. Before my arrival at UNICAL, I already had a relatively formulated worldview and political leaning. However, at UNICAL, I became political mature. I attained political maturity at the university. I considered myself then a Nigerian nationalist, a patriot, and politically progressive person of leftist persuasion. I strongly believed in equal rights and equal treatment for every single Nigerian. I was of the school of thought of Professor Escotoyo that all ethnic groups and religions must be treated equally. Having lived through the Biafran Civil War, which was fought along ethnic lines, I was even more convinced that ethnic unity, which mirrored my progressive humanist ideology, was a panacea for Nigerian development. Without it, Nigeria was not going to be developed. I was expelled from the university by the then Nigerian military junta headed by President General Olusegun Obasanjo, after declining to disavow my core beliefs and refusal to keep quiet while the military nudged Nigeria towards a fascist dictatorship. My passport was seized. I was barred from leaving the country. I was barred from continuing my education in Nigeria itself during this military regime. This is a regime that had just massacred Mr. Akintunde Ojo of University of Lagos and 13 other students from various universities. I wonder what his parents did after that. Please, before I continue, I once more request that my listeners Google and confirm the historical accuracy of my story and my recollections of the above. A couple of attempts by me and my 3 other fellow student leaders were kicked out to travel out of the country for challenging the military government to resume our academic careers failed because we were not allowed to study overseas. The immigration will not let us cross. This is after we were stopped from studying at home by military edict. What you may ask was our crime. My lawyer, Chief Garifayemi, informed us that we were charged with treason for challenging the legitimacy of the military junta that came to power by force. And I will be tried unless we receive a presidential pardon. We'll be tried and executed. That's what we were told. I must point out here that the progressive forces in the country and the nation at large stood by us. So it's not like people did not stand by us. They stood by us, they stood by our cause because it was right. What were we fighting for? Well, first of all, we condemned the military for illegally, undemocratically, and forcefully usurping power without any election. They just shot guns and grabbed power by force without any mandate. We demanded a reform of the Nigerian educational system to benefit all, not just the children of the rich, to benefit all Nigerians, irrespective of social class, by its admission policies and funding. We opposed the proposed introduction of school fees in the 12 states because we wanted everybody given equal shot in state-owned universities. At the time, the country, as a member of OPEC, the cartel, the oil cartel, was enjoying unprecedented fattening of its national and international reserves. Dollars were flowing in from the international crisis, oil crisis of the 70s. We campaigned against the military general's sudden wealth. Their conspicuous consumption was there for all to see. The wealth was unexplained, while the Nigerian poor was left to fend for themselves. Our national strike, which was declared at my university, University of Calabar, led to a closing down of all universities for about 6 weeks. This was unprecedented. It's not like today. It was unprecedented because at the time, you don't close universities for more than a week. Obviously, today, the country had since gone downhill. Various governments since then have had the license to just shut universities. In fact, recently, universities were shut for more than 1 year. For more than a year. Think about this. These are universities. General Obasanjo started this trend. He must be held accountable for it. Because he wants to shut the population up from expressing their dissatisfaction with his oppressive policies. That was what this was about. They were prepared to sacrifice education. The military, as you can see, had no respect for education. And from that moment began the downward spiral of our institutions of higher learning. Today, they are a skeleton of what they were in those days. Back to my journey. I left Nigeria through the so-called democracy route. What is that? Well, it is sneaking out of the country. I'm not going to tell you what it is because we may need to use it again the way things are going in Nigeria today. We basically sneaked out from under the undemocratic military regime to continue. I sneaked out to continue my education overseas. Even after that, my attempt to visit my family from overseas, where I was attending medical school a couple of years later, resulted in the seizure of my national passport upon my arrival at Murtala Mohammed Airport. This is after the democratically elected government of President Shehu Shagari had granted the 5 of us pardons because we were granted pardons right after a new civilian government came into power. So I was surprised. They took over from the military under a democratic dispensation. They took over from the military government of General Obasanjo. I was effectively under house arrest, as I had to attend frequent daily interrogation sessions. After my passport was seized at the National Security Organization, which is presently called DSS, and could not even visit my family. There was no time to visit my family, nor return to resume my studies for about 3 months. That's how long they kept me in house arrest. This was under a civilian democratic dispensation. This is a civilian government. This is actually a credible civilian government because it was set up after an orderly and democratic process. The members were elected, in a democracy. The 1979 Constitution, like today, that Constitution was written by a duly constituted Constitutional Assembly under the eminent jurist, Udo Udoma. Justice Udo Udoma. The National Student Leadership, of which I belonged, even had a seat at the table. were granted membership along with other civil society groups. We helped write the Constitution. The groups like the National Union of Teachers, NUT, National Labour Congress, etc., were in this assembly. I'm mentioning this part of my history because I don't want you to take anything for granted today. Today we have a civilian government, which was not even legally put together. Think about this. The operating constitution we have today was written under the thumb of General Sani Abacha and hurriedly imposed on the country by General Abdul Salam Abubakar after the sudden and mysterious demise of the military dictator Sani Abacha, who designed this particular constitution to smooth his planned transition from military to civilian leadership. I once more point out that the present constitution, as far as I'm concerned, was written by a military general who inserted provisions that were pro-northern elite and anti the Niger Delta, which is what created the massacre recently, the democracy massacre. The Niger Delta, this is where most of the economic sustenance came from, but the constitution was written against them. This, as you can imagine, is not sustainable and has led to widespread consternation and bitterness, has led to frequent blow-ups of the oil pipeline by the skimmed out areas and regions. I will continue with my political story and loss of confidence with Nigeria so that you will be able to see with me where I came from and where I am. That loss means Nigeria cannot operate as a corporate entity. A referendum on the willingness of its uneasy federating units must be done for unity and peace. Blessings to you and your families. I am Offiong Akwa.